Base Case, Season 2, Episode 4, Practicing and Goal Setting. What am I doing? It's the beginning of the month, year, semester, summer, or not. Maybe it's the beginning of the month, year, semester, or the middle of the month, year, semester, or summer. And I need to regroup, realign, reevaluate, reassess. Don't you love those terms? I think conceptual labels like that came from the 1970s, and they've flourished ever since because everybody likes to sound corporate for some reason. And they're effective to some extent if you're honest with the term that you're using. But I'm going to take the corporate language out of the equation and go to something far more simple. I've got to see what I have and what I want to do and how I'm going to get there. And most bass players listening need to do the same. And the biggest point, I guess point number one, we don't have to do this at the beginning of the year, week, month, semester, or summer. That may have already passed. You might be in the middle of the week or the middle of the semester or the middle of the month. We have to do it right now. You want to become a better bass player. I know, and that's so vague. Maybe I want to play major scales in all 12 keys, one octave. The student comes in with that. I can deal with that. I want to walk F blues at 240. That's a burning tempo. I can deal with that. I want to solo over blue bossa and feel good about my lines, but play language, be in the pocket. Again, I can deal with that. Now, notice what I've got there in my wants. I've got technicals, scales. I've got walking. Most jazz players, bread and buttered, if you want to use a colloquialism. And then I've got some soloing. Now, just those three, major scales in one octave, walking over F blues really fast, and then some conceptual soloing over blue bossa. That's enough to keep a bass player busy for a month. That's a lot for a week, and it's way too much for a day. But for a month, I can work out these techniques. Scales, walking, and soloing, and by the end of the month, I can be the better bass player that I want to be, better than I was at the beginning of the month. And it's the how do I get there? It's got to be mapped out because you'll waste time and lose interest if you don't do that. Let's start with the 12 scales. And I'm just using these as markers, right? I mean, it could be that you're trying to learn 12 harmonic minor scales. Maybe you're just trying to play F major in 2 octaves. Maybe you're trying to play F major in 2 octaves, but use 2 different fingerings and shifts. But I'm just going to use these 12 scales. The student that wants to learn 12 scales, all 12 scales, and that's 3 a week over that course of a month. I don't know where you're at, so I don't know if you're able to, if that's doable for you. But hypothetically, you're going to take down 3 a week. And let's say halfway through the week, you've got 3 scales. My advice, don't add on right there. Stay on schedule and work those 3 scales. Don't add on. You're ahead of schedule. That always feels good. In most cases, people are behind schedule. They're over budget, right? We want to set goals and making them feel good. The problem what I see with a lot of people's goals, and I'm not just talking about in music, I'm talking about in their workout programs, etc., is that they got lots of goals, and all of them are too large. And there's no small bites within them. I don't want to set a goal of 12 scales and then halfway through the month I don't have anything or I have very little. I've got to get 1, right? The achievement of a goal feels good, so you've got to go for the smaller goal. If you made 3 and you've made it early, stay there. Next month when you evaluate, right, You take and you say, well, wait a second. I got through this faster, at least in the first week. Maybe the first week I'll do 4 and then figure it out. But here's another thing. Let's say you're working on double bass and the first 3 were F, B flat, and G. Those are very user-friendly scales for double bass players. And then a couple weeks later, you get down to A flat, D flat, and B, not as user-friendly. And you may not make your goals for that week. Or you'll need the whole week. Those things happen all the time. Everything is not ironed out evenly. But let's say at the end of the month, and you did your practicing and your due diligence, but you came up short and you only made 8 of the 12 scales. That's still a success story. You're still ahead because at the beginning of the month you did not have those. So you didn't make your goals, but you did make 8 of the 12 or 6 of the 12 or 4 of the 12 or 11 of the 12. You're a better musician than you were at the beginning of the month. And you're going to have to reevaluate and say, you know what? Next month I'm not going to go for 12 scales. I'm going for 6. And keep in mind that the month doesn't necessarily begin on the first of the month. You get this idea that you want to improve. You wake up one day and it's March 8th, then that's the beginning of the month and work it from there. It's a Wednesday, right? I mean, I think it's great the world at one point devised days, weeks, months, and years to separate things, but that doesn't necessarily how all humans work. The human race doesn't typically always work like that. It's all right to go from February 7th to March 7th. That's fine. That's for you to figure out. But either way, that picking up the 8 scales on your way to a month of 12 is a success story. Now, let's take that walking at 240. That's a fast tempo for most bass players walking the planet. Don't start off right there. Don't say, this is like some guy that wants to bench press 300, so he puts 300 on there, and every day he tries to lift that. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. You got to start at 150 and move your way up. Start at 120 for your walking. And you got to make sure it feels good. You got to make sure the lines are well constructed. You got to make sure that these lines are the same ones that are going to work at 240, because some lines that work at 120 don't work at 240. And you're going to need to check out 240 from time to time and just see what it feels like. It may not be as dark of a goal as you think, but it's still going to require some work. I don't know anybody that's picked up the bass and can walk at 240. But you also got to delineate the goal further. You got to say, how many choruses do I want to walk at 240? 5 choruses, 10 choruses, 20 choruses. What's the goal for the month? Go low. Go 5. Set the bar low and increase height. It feels better. Don't be getting ahead of yourself, as some of my students do, and they've got these amazing goals, and it feels good to talk about them. But then when you start trying to work on them, it's almost impossible. And if you start practicing at 200 and can't make it every time, you're going to avoid practicing. At the very least, you're not going to have a positive attitude about your practicing. You're not going to feel good about yourself as a musician. We're not going to feel good every time that we walk up to the bass in the practice room. We have to know, like I said at the beginning, we have to know what we can do as musicians before we can establish where we want to go. Let me repeat that. You have to know what you can do right now. Can I walk F blues at 120? Before I start setting goals at 240. Because if I can't walk at 120, that has to be the goal, right? How many times, I'm kind of veering away, but it's still the same thing. How many times have I asked a bass player or other instrumentalists or vocalists, do you know blank, pick tune, autumn leaves, softly as in a morning sunrise, etc.? And the answer comes back, kind of. I think I can get through it. You don't know it. You're not going to feel comfortable. And I did the same thing too. And that's the kind of honesty we need to have when we're evaluating ourselves as musicians. We got to know who we are. I'm looking at the playlist on my app that logs all my practicing. and it does it in sets, and it's a wonderful work. There's several of them like that. I'm not advertising anything right now. There's a list of pieces that I'm going to have to play as a soloist this semester. I've got to be honest with myself. Last night in a lesson, I played the Eccles first movement. It was there by memory. A student of mine is learning it, so it just made it more effective to teach him, and he's learning it, but not by memory. Then I went 30 minutes later into the recital lab, and I played Straight Note Chaser for the students, unaccompanied solo bass. It was there. Okay, check those off the list. I can put them more at the bottom of the priority list. And I've got to look at the ones that are a problem. That felt good playing Eccles by memory in front of my student. That felt good doing my Straight Note Chaser thing in front of those students. But okay, enough. I got to get to the ones that I'm sick at. The ones that I can't play by memory, that I don't know as well. The problem children need my attention, and they need it immediately. The 4A. I can't play the second half by memory. That's top of the list because I've got to go play that in April a few times, and I want to play it by memory. I can play the first half by memory, the second half, After warming up and playing a scale in the key that the 4A piece is in, A minor, I got to get to work. I've got to get some work done. I don't want to go and play Straight Note Chaser because it feels good, because I know I can do that. I've got to get to the stuff that makes me feel bad and get some work done of it. What am I going to do? Try to memorize the whole second half? No. I'm going to take 4 bars. I'm going to take the first phrase. But I'm being honest with myself. I can't play the second half of the 4A. If I tried to do it without the music, I could probably get through it. I kind of know it, but it would break. I'm going to be real honest with myself. I'd be uncomfortable if I was in front of people. There would be a few measures where my accompanist would have to play without me and cover me. And that's an honest assessment, and I don't want to do that. It's a bad look for everybody. That sets up my practice routine. What am I having problems with? I've got to get down to business. Learning that second half of the 4A, playing it by memory, that makes me the better bass player than I was when I started this. That's my main goal. Taking apart the second half of the 4A is where I start. Small chunks, doable goals, building momentum, and feeling good. If you have any questions, just email me at phil@basscase.co. I'll talk to you soon.